Today I'm speaking with Sam Witwer. Sam, welcome to the 25th year of Visioncon.
Thank you very much.
Visioncon's a nonprofit convention, and our proceeds go to charity. Have you enjoyed your stay so far?
Well, it's been very brief so far. I just got here, but it's been nice. I had sushi last night.
Oh,
that's a good start.
Sushi is good.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions for you. When you were working on the Force Unleashed, did you know at the time that they were going to use your likeness as well as your voice acting?
Yeah, shortly after they hired me, maybe I knew that beforehand. In fact, no, I did know that beforehand. The way that it happened is my buddy David Collins was working at LucasArts at the time, and there was a big meeting for the company where they unveiled this painting of what the character was meant to look like. After they went through all these iterations of the concept phase, they finally settled on one. And David and a guy named Dara O'Farrell were there, and when they unveiled the painting, they both looked at each other and they said, "That looks like Sam, or that looks like your friend Sam." So David got a hold of me and said, "Listen, you have to send me your materials, your reel and your headshot and all that stuff." And I'm like, "Why is that?" He's like, "Well, Darth Vader has this secret apprentice." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "Forget I said anything. Just send your stuff in." And then he's like, "It's crazy, man. We're doing this video game and the character looks like you." And I'm like, "Okay, really? Cool." And he's like, "No, that's significant because," and I think it was then that he explained to me that they want actors who we can use not only their voice but their likeness, but and their physicality and all that stuff. So he said that works to your advantage that the character kind of looks like you. So then once I was hired, then they scanned me in at ILM and made the character look exactly like me, which was fun. But what was really fun was meeting the concept artists, or meeting Amy Beth Christensen, who's a concept artist now over at Rebels, and she was just shocked when she met all of the actors and actresses, because she'd sort of dreamed these people up, and suddenly here were all these actors who looked like these people. So it's a strange casting process when you already know kind of what you're going for physically, but I mean it certainly isn't unheard of. I mean, you see all the time in an audition breakdown, we want a guy who's kind of like this. But with them, they had very strong physical concepts that they wanted to match, and they ended up finding actors who not only matched it physically, but vocally sounded like you think the characters would sound like.
Right. I was playing The Force Unleashed an awful lot at the time, and my son was over. He was about 11 years old, and I turned on Being Human and was watching that, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's The Apprentice." I'm like, yes.
It's a weird thing. I mean, when you do a video game, especially at the time, I wasn't thinking that it was going to have any kind of impact on my career, but it did. I mean, I was in meetings at the time where people were approaching me about various stuff and being like, "Okay, so tell us about this Force Unleashed thing."
There's worse things to be attached to than Star Wars.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, to be recognized in the middle of the street for that,
yeah.
And that still happens. I mean, it's so interesting. Since that game came out in 2008, there hasn't been a week that's gone by where someone hasn't asked me some sort of question about that project.
Sure.
I mean, which is when I think about that. I mean, I've said this before, but I haven't really grasped it. That's really that's good.
Speaking of projects, do you have any current projects that you're working on right now?
I'm working on another video game that is using my likeness, not a Star Wars game, and I can't really say much more than that. We've been working on it for about a little over a year. So I think it's being announced at E3 this year, so then I'll be able to talk about it. There's also some other stuff that I will be able to talk about after the end of March. Can't talk about it now.
No problem. We will definitely be keeping an eye out for that.
And then there's a movie called Officer Down, which I play a smaller role of kind of a mad scientist, so that's kind of fun.
Oh, nice.
And then there's and then I've been working a lot on this music project. I'm trying to complete a second album for my Crash Tones project, and that's been taking up a lot of time, and a lot of effort.
Yeah, we'll definitely all, I'm sure, be keeping an eye on that. Talking about smaller roles, you've done a lot of single episode of series. Does it ever upset you when somebody doesn't recognize that you were on the show, like Walking Dead, for example?
No, you weren't supposed to recognize me on Walking Dead. I mean, that was a situation where Darabont wanted to. He called me up and originally he wanted me to play another role on the show,
right?
But I wasn't available, so then it was like, well, can we get him to guest, or can I do a smaller thing on the show? And he came up with this idea of doing a prequel episode about that zombie character in the tank. That was the whole idea. It's like, I want to put you in the tank, and then what I want to do is later in the second season have you back, but as the living version of that character.
But that got scrapped.
Yeah, when he left, that didn't happen. But it was going to be, the idea was we were trying to balance. Nicotero did my makeup, Greg Nicotero.
Oh,
and we were trying. What's that?
It looked great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's Greg Nicotero. But we were trying to figure out how much to make it look like me and how much to make it not look like me, because the whole thing about the second season thing is that it would only work if you followed this character and didn't know he was going to die, and then
Surprise.
you followed him and then he gets bit, and then we would reshoot that scene from the perspective of the zombie.
Oh yeah.
So that would have been fun.
Speaking of your different acting jobs, yesterday at lunch I saw your Loot Crate commercial again. And is doing a commercial quite a lot different than doing like voice work or a series?
The only 2 commercials that I've ever done, I've done 3. The first job I ever had was a commercial, and I was a ninja on a Chicago Bulls commercial, which was ridiculous. And that was my first paid gig ever. And then the second commercial was a brisk iced tea as Darth Maul, so that was fun. I didn't really understand when Lucasfilm called me up. They're like, "Hey, so there's this brisk iced tea commercial. They want to use Darth Maul. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Sure, I'll do it. Yeah." What? And they're like, "Great," because if you'd said no, then they could go and cast. But if you say yes, they have to use you. And I'm like, "Oh, that's right. I guess I'm a package deal with Lucasfilm." So
right.
But the Loot Crate thing, what was appealing about that was that no one ever really, short of being human, no one ever really pays me to be silly.
Right.
And being human.
And at Visioncon, we're all about being silly. I tell you that much.
But no one, it's. I was a big fan of. I'm a goofball with my friends, and we're always joking around about something or making strange noises.
Sure.
Noises or doing weird voices or whatever. And so the Loot Crate thing was just me wishing that I could have been in Airplane or Airplane 2.
Right.
I mean, those, just because I said to the director, I'm like, "So can I do it like this?" And he's like, yeah, I think you probably should. I'm like, "All right, cool." And so that was what was fun about that, was just being an idiot.
Yeah. On Being Human, my favorite, of course, I'm going to keep going back to that. They do different sequences, like flashbacks to different times, i.e. Highlander. Did you enjoy doing the more modern stuff, or did you enjoy doing the flashback, back in the past episodes more?
I feel like I was. This is really for the audience to decide, but I feel like some flashbacks I probably did better than others. I don't know. Maybe some people thought, they were all great. Maybe, I don't know. I'd like to think that they were all okay at least. But it was always really challenging because you had to sort of reinvent the character every time that you did that. Because we made this decision early on that Aiden would act. I remember asking Jeremy Carver and Adam Kane, I'm like, and Anna Fricke, I said, does Aiden talk? Do you want to get the sense that he's 260 years old when we meet him, or does he talk like we talk? Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Oh, he talks like we talk." And I'm like, "Okay." And I remember thinking, all right, how do we make that make sense? We make it make sense because he looks 25, and so he would act like a 25-year-old in 2010 or whatever it was, or 2012 or something like that. Was that 2000? Yeah, it was like 2012, 2013, whatever. And so working backwards from that, if you see him in the 50s, he's got to act like a 25-year-old in the 50s. And if you see him in the 20s, he's got to act like a 25-year-old in the 20s. And so that was the challenge, is trying to reinvent him every time. And then also have it be a reflection on his current attitude and how he's doing.
Right.
And that also was complicated because you had to sort of work up what the history of the vampires were. Because when we meet him in, I guess, 2012, 2013 or whatever, they're not doing great. They're taking these weird day jobs and they're hiding in the shadows, and Bishop's dressing like a nerd, and Aiden is, they don't have a lot of money.
So it goes all the way back to Puritan days.
And that sort of makes sense. Be like, yeah, they wouldn't want to have a high profile if they're trying to stay in the shadows. But then you go back to I think it was the 30s or something, and they're doing, they have a hotel and they're doing great, and they're all wearing nice suits, and it's like, okay, so all right, so now we are learning that back then they were doing great, but then this huge massacre happens at the hotel, and that's what causes them to start seeking day jobs and hiding in garages and the shadows and stuff like that, and so thus justifying the thing we'd already shot with Aiden being kind of a thug in the 50s, like a really bitter, angry thug. So you had to figure out, but you were shooting it all out of order, We did the 50s before we did the 20s, and so we did him as a thug, but you go back in the past, and he was super civilized, and so there were a lot of changes with that character. Sure. But I think my two favorite flashbacks would have to be the 50s, and then there was one particular flashback I think that happened in the 20s where Aiden he got to sing "Ain't She Sweet" while stalking a woman and
walking down the alley.
Yeah, which. That was that was a situation where I cost the company some money because we didn't have the rights to "Ain't She Sweet." That was the whole story behind that was that
it kind of gave you the idea that he wasn't such a good guy.
Right. Well, that was the thing is like every time you do something, or I feel like every time you do, especially a murder scene, it has the potential of being just desensitizing and desensitized and not terribly interesting and just kind of like going through the motions, brutalize someone, which I'm not that interested in. But if you could do something weird with it, then that makes it interesting, I think,
right.
And something memorable. And there was a line in the script where Sally says, "I watched you over, the course of several months, and you enjoyed it. And one time you were even singing," she said. Mm-hmm. And so I remember that stuck with me, and I remember calling up Stefan. I'm like, it says one time he was singing. Isn't it more interesting to see that than to hear about that? Like, let's do that in this scene. And I'm like, I've been looking up a whole bunch of songs from the period, and I think "Ain't She Sweet" is probably the best we're going to get. And I believe over 50 years, the copyright lapses or something like that. It becomes public domain. I mean, I'm like, I don't know about that. He's like, well, contact the lawyers. So I wrote the lawyers, and this is all on the day that we were shooting this.
Yes.
And I wrote the lawyers over at Muse, and they never got back to me. So I was like, I think we're good. That song is from over 50 years ago.
Well, it was disturbing. So congratulations on that.
So yeah, that was how that came about. And then later we found out that the copyright rules are a little bit different, and so we had to pay for that song. But they felt it was worth it. They felt it was very strange.
So, at its core, Visioncon has always been a gaming convention. It's now more media-based, really, but we still do a lot of gaming. I've seen that you're somewhat of a gamer. Is there any particular game your go-to that you like to play, or?
In terms of tabletop stuff?
Yes.
The one that me and my friends grew up with was Star Wars.
That was a good one.
The West End Games version, which it's kind of funny that was useful. That was me doing homework for for the work that I'd be doing later on. It's not widely known that the West End Games books, that was the beginning of the expanded universe for Star Wars.
Right. Oh yeah.
What everyone thinks it was the Timothy Zahn novels, but the Timothy Zahn novels, Timothy Zahn was given the West End Games books as research.
Yeah. So
some of the cooler parts of the Timothy Zahn novels were all based off of research, stuff from those source books.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, and also that was a time when Star Wars had kind of gone away.
It was kind of in the annals of time. It was like there was not going to be any more. Yeah. Everybody that loved it, that's all you got.
That was it. And
so you had to turn to your imagination.
So right, exactly. And I remember was reading about how lightsabers had crystals in them and all kinds of crazy, weird stuff about, this race or that ship or how the Empire was run or Imperial Inquisitors, stuff like that.
Yeah. I heard that on Force Unleashed that the whole scene with them putting the lightsaber together with the crystal and everything, was that your idea or?
It wasn't my idea. Probably what you remember hearing was that in the audition, that was one of the scenes from the audition or a version of that scene. And I remember it said in the script that he was meditating.
Yeah.
And so when I was doing the scene, I was really tense when I was meditating. You know, I was sitting there and I was really, really tense. And Hayden Blackman goes, "Hey, I have a question for you, man. Why are you tense? You know, he's meditating." And I said, "Because he's been trained as a Sith. He doesn't know how to do this. He's doing it wrong." And Hayden,
He's doing it with raw emotion.
yeah, he doesn't quite know how to reach that piece that you know it would take. And Hayden Blackman, I remember, because he was behind some glass in a recording room, and I was in the recording booth, and he was in the control room. I remember he untouches the talk button, and he kind of starts talking to people and stuff like that, and he goes, "Okay, well, that's interesting." And apparently for him, that was the moment where he knew he was going to hire me, because he's like, oh, he's already thinking in a Star Wars sense. And I think in the actual game, they went with, they used a little bit of it. If you watch the facial animation very closely, he has a moment where he furrows his brow, but other than that, he is generally at peace. Because the point that they wanted to make was that this was his rare moment of peace, and then it gets interrupted by Darth Vader coming in.
So they didn't realize you were a Star Wars nerd going into it.
David maybe told them, but I don't know if they knew right away. I mean, the Star Wars nerd thing has definitely helped me get jobs from Lucasfilm.
I bet. Being in the voice acting part of it, do you enjoy voice acting more than being on screen? Or
I enjoy all of it.
Just every bit of it?
Yeah. They're all different challenges. I mean, the voice acting thing is still challenging to me, because it's like you only have your voice to convey whatever it is that you're conveying.
Do you have like a favorite role you've ever played?
No.
Or do you just embrace them all as your babies?
I like them all for different reasons, I think. Okay. And then some of them I don't like.
Sure. You know, one last question. I'm going to wrap this up. If you could have a reoccurring role on a series, past or present, what would it be?
Reoccurring role on a series, past or present?
Yes, sir.
That's tough. That's really, really tough. I mean, it certainly would have been fun to be on Sons of Anarchy or something like that.
Right.
That would have been a good time. For me, if the role is difficult, then I'm interested. If the role's a little bit easy, I don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And maybe that's because I just have never really been hired for easy roles.
Oh, sure.
Which, you know, now that I think that, I feel a little cheated. Like, I feel like I'm the guy that people hire when they can't hire anyone else or something like that.
Character actor.
Sort of, yeah, kind of. You know, which was why it's why the Smallville thing and the Being Human thing was a little bit of a surprise to me, because those were more leading man type roles with character aspects built in that would come up every now and then. So, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, Sam, I appreciate you talking to us here at the 25th anniversary of Visioncon, and I hope you enjoy your stay at the convention.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.